Do you think you're the devil himself?
I don't know. Why would you say that?
Advising the worst people in the world that do enormous bad things.
Ethics is always a complicated subject.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah.
It's sitting on my desk right now.
They're sitting on it. That seems like an evil thing to do.
Because of who's on that list.
Who, if anyone?
There is no credible information. None.
These documents detail at least 20 men.
You know why? The Dow. The Dow right now.
She could not even turn around and face us.
Why not just go ahead and release the full files?
This administration released over 3 million pages of documents.
They say they collected 6 million. What happened to the other 3 million?
Millions of documents featuring some of the world's most powerful men.
Now we have evidence that it was a lot worse than we have ever imagined.
Prince Andrew has been arrested.
Bill Gates' eye-opening apology for his relationship with Jeffree Epstein.
I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again.
The Epstein files show a very different record.
We're having a reckoning as a society.
I never been friends with Epstein.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
Yes, sir.
It's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax.
There is no evidence whatsoever. No girl should ever be put in this situation.
This is me. This was me.
This is me. When I met Jeffree Epstein.
I also want to thank all the many who have sent messages of support. Ghislaine Maxwell, I don't like her.
The Epstein files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department. It should not be a part of anything going forward.
The release right now is being sold as transparency, and it is not transparent at all.
Are you still talking about Jeffree Epstein?
I was thinking the other day about someone in my past who betrayed me. They violated my trust, my boundaries, stole from me, and even threatened my safety in a way that to this day makes me sick to my stomach when I think about it. And maybe you've had a similar experience with someone. And then I thought, what would it be like if that betrayal, that violation was done by someone super powerful? I'm talking billionaire status, ultra elite, the kind of someone connected to every untouchable person around who uses that for protection. What you're looking at here is a list of some of the most famous, most powerful names you'll probably ever see. Names like Michael Jackson, Gigi Hadid, Diana Ross, Woody Allen, Deepak Chopra, David Copperfield, Bill Cosby, Bill Gates, Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, Kevin Spacey, Mark Zuckerberg, David Blaine, even Chuck E. Cheese, and Jeffree Epstein. So what do all these names have in common?
The Department of Justice releasing its remaining documents from the Jeffree Epstein investigation.
As you may have guessed, they're all mentioned in the Epstein files, the 3.5 million page information dump courtesy of the Department of Justice.
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images.
Oh, and a side note, I use the word information loosely as a lot of it is heavily to the point of being utterly useless.
Redacted.
Now, Epstein is a man who needs no introduction. He's a monster, period, full stop.
Same concept is that the limits were God. You got close to God, but you can never be God.
But if you've somehow been asleep since early claims of his depravity began going viral during the 2016 presidential election, here's a quick refresher. Epstein was an American financier who earned astounding levels of wealth managing money for the elite, and as a result, garnered ties to some of the world's most powerful figures. We're talking politicians, CEOs, major banks, even the upper echelons of academia.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
No, but I do have a good mirror.
But that's most likely not what you know him for. What you know Epstein for is his criminal conduct. What began as a 2008 Florida guilty plea to charges related to solicitation eventually morphed into revelations that he was running one of the largest criminal operations in our history.
Breaking news, billionaire Jeffree Epstein arrested on new sex trafficking charges.
Jeffree Epstein went to jail just before 10 this morning. He pleaded guilty in open court.
It's a story involving over 1,000 victims, politicians from all over the globe, and one of the single greatest cover-ups of all time, to the point even conspiracy theorists doubt the level of authenticity in the claims, and yet it happened. But here's the thing, when you list out those celebrity names that I mentioned earlier, the list kind of takes on a life of its own and becomes a potential distraction, right? Like Jackson, Epstein, Cosby, Oz. Now let's be real, some of those names are absolute garbage people for their own reasons that deserve to be held accountable for their own reasons. But an important question remains that's essential in order to hold the right people accountable. Did all those people I listed actually purchase victims from Epstein? And the short answer for some, probably not. So where does that leave us?
You know, you talking to the FBI and doing all, like, so much stuff to get the call that he was gone. Felt like I did everything and still wasn't gonna get what I needed.
There are literally thousands of names in what we know as the Epstein files by virtue of how the DOJ has released them. The files are actually Jeffree Epstein's files. These are his emails, his flight logs, receipts, Amazon purchases, TV guide listings. And these files cast a wide net. I mean, at one point, Jeffree Epstein ordered a Minion toothpaste dispenser and was asked to review it. So if you order the same dispenser, you may even find a review from him.
Hello.
Now, I could speculate several abhorrent reasons why Epstein might want a child's toothpaste dispenser, but what wouldn't be fair would be to speculate that somehow Despicable Me should be investigated, right?
Yes, I am pretty despicable.
That's the thing about being in the Epstein files. It doesn't necessarily mean guilt instantaneously. Just look at the Hadid sisters or freaking Chuck E. Cheese. When people jump to conclusions about every name ever mentioned, things can become diluted to the point that people stop paying attention to the real culprits.
They released this email. Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did.
Now, the rest of this complicated story lies not just in Epstein, but in his actual associates, the inner circle. We're talking about people like Ghislaine Maxwell, Steve Bannon, former Victoria's Secret owner Leslie Wexner, actual world leaders, and a whole host of names you've probably never heard of before because, let's face it, the less famous they are, the less people are paying attention. And that makes them more sinister. They hide in the shadows, committing unimaginable crimes because no one is watching.
Is it true that you made Mr. Epstein a godfather of your children?
Yes.
And maybe, just maybe, some of those hiding in the shadows are countless members of the current administration, the very people in charge of the investigation, the same people who have just announced that they will not release any more of the files.
We have released everything. We are not sitting on a single piece of paper. Nothing that should be released.
So here's the obvious question. Can you have a sprawling operation without clients and partners? No. Which is a little funny because I remember FBI Director Kash Patel saying this.
There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday.
And I remember former U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi saying this.
Our memo on Epstein clearly points out that there was no client list.
Which leaves us with an even bigger question. How was Jeffree Epstein able to operate for so long, both in the shadows and in the spotlight? Who was protecting him back then, and who is still protecting him today? And this is what we know. There are so many rabbit holes in the official Department of Justice Epstein library that provide both critical information as well as recipes for misinformation. For instance, if you watched my last Swoop doc, you know that we investigated Dr. Phil, and yes, Dr. Phil is in the Epstein files.
And it's gonna open up a can of whoop ass on you.
But see, almost everything in the files about Philip is spam mail sent to Epstein, or articles about Phil, or TV guide entries. Well, that is, except for the FBI tip about an alleged Epstein victim that was also a guest on Dr. Phil, apparently. It's alarming, and definitely info that, if framed the wrong way, can mislead everyone. Like, for instance, somebody could go right now and tweet, Dr. Phil found in the Epstein files with a victim, and that would be very misleading.
This is a very high stakes scenario.
Now, there are hundreds of other people who can't deny a direct connection to Epstein. People like French model scout Jean-Luc Brunel, Victoria's Secret owner Les Wexner, and tech billionaire Peter Thiel, aka the world's sleep paralysis demon.
Should the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But
there's also suspicious and downright horrific communications with people like Woody Allen, David Copperfield, human garbage disposal, the former Prince Andrew, Bill Gates, and Bill Clinton.
I'm going to say this again. I did not
have.
I mean, shit, like even the founder of fucking 4chan, Christopher Moot Poole, is in there. There are so many people all over the world connected to Jeffree Epstein that you might start to wonder, like, who the hell didn't this guy know? Now, today won't be a complete list of associates. That would be, number one, impossible from the redactions, and also that would make this 10 hours long, but we will dig into what's fact, what's fiction, what's worth investigating, and what's just a distraction. But first, if you're seeing me for the first time, welcome. My name is Swoop, and I'm a documentary filmmaker and commentary creator with a lot of opinions, and I make what we call Swoop docs on complex stories about people and events that impact our lives. Some who are misunderstood, and some who abuse their power because, as I always say, it's not drama, it's dangerous. We are the community of critical thinkers, welcome. We dig deep into the evidence, present multiple perspectives, and sometimes play devil's advocate for deeper understanding. So if that sounds good to you, could I ask one simple favor? We are on the road to 1 million subscribers, which is such a huge milestone. I am so beyond thankful. I could not have done it without your support. That being said, when I look at the numbers, 59% of you who watch and listen every week are not yet subscribed, and you might even think that you are. So would you hit subscribe and join me on this journey? It is the free and easy way to support the work that I and my team do. And the best part is, the bigger we get, the bigger the stories we get to cover. I also have a second channel called Swoop Do. We do little skinny dips over there. And you can also join us on Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to 4 more videos per month, plus the entire back catalog and the free newsletter, so you never miss a single update. Okay, friends, real quick before we dive in, this message is sponsored by Raycon. With Mother's Day coming up, can we talk about how hard it is to find a gift that moms or the mother figure in your life will actually use? You know what I'm talking about, like not just some flowers that don't make it past 3 days, or something that she says she loves but just ends up in a drawer. This right here is the perfect gift. Raycon's Essential Open Earbuds. Whether our moms are working from home, or juggling the kids, or going on a walk, running errands, or on the phone, or honestly just trying to get 5 minutes of peace, Raycon's Essential Open Earbuds are absolutely the perfect gift. Unlike other earbuds, they don't block out everything around you. Your mom or you can listen to music or podcasts while still hearing what's happening around you. I love Raycon so much. I have so many pairs in my studio, at home, in my bag, in my gym bag. Literally, they go everywhere with me. And right now you can grab them for 15% off. So we all know that like regular earbuds, when you put them in, they block out like nearly everything. Like you cannot hear someone calling your name or a car honking behind you, nothing, which is fine sometimes, but when I'm out living life, I need awareness, honey. So with Raycon's Essential Open Earbuds, they sit just outside your ear canal, so you can still get really crisp, clear sound, like your music, your podcast, while still being able to hear what's happening around you. Like I actually wore mine when I was out getting my nails done and could catch up on a show that I was watching without disturbing people around me. And I was still able to chat with my nail tech. Like honestly, my mom gets a little flustered with closed earbuds or like headphones that go over the head or like squeeze the head too much. And so these are such a game changer. They're also really lightweight. I'll wear these for hours and I don't even notice that I'm wearing them. And the flexible ear hook actually rotates and adapts to your ear so they stay in place. And something I love, they have a multi-point connection. Like if I'm listening to something on my laptop and I get a call on my phone, it just switches over, which I love that efficiency. And the battery life, honey, 8 hours of playtime and up to 36 hours with the charging case. Raycon has over 3 million customers and the sound quality is right up there with the more expensive brands, but without all that extra markup. And there's also a 30-day guarantee so you can try them out stress-free. I've been using these pretty much every single day since I got them. They're part of my daily routine now, and they're the ones that I actually reach for over my other earbuds. So dear friends, celebrate the moms in your life. Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/swoopopen to get 15% off Essential Open Earbuds. That's buyraycon.com/swoopopen, SWOOPOPEN, to get 15% off the Essential Open Earbuds. Thanks Raycon for sponsoring, and treat yourself, honey. You deserve it. Okay, back to the doc. Now, as we begin our story, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the survivors. I support all those who bravely are fighting for justice publicly, privately, and who are no longer with us, but who will never be forgotten. In the description, you will find a link to worldwithoutexploitation.org, where you can join in supporting the survivors and sign the petition demanding full transparency. Now, a little bit of context about me as I take you through this story. I am a survivor of as a child and sexual abuse and I know many of you watching are survivors. I will not be going into detail of the horrors that they endured. That's not the focus of this piece, but there are many interviews available, and I recommend that you hear directly from them if you can. Now, obviously, we will at times discuss political figures, and here's my bottom line. If someone causes harm, I do not give one shit about which side of the aisle they're on, and I think that we can all agree.
All the reality is go after the pedophiles, right? Like, that's one thing we can agree on, right? We should be agreeing on.
And lastly, I'm giving you all a little heads up, okay? Sometimes I cope with my frustration of injustice through sarcasm, so you'll see some of that today, okay? Thank you for keeping the conversation alive in spite of those who wish to silence it.
Pam Bondi said if we go after everybody that was involved, our government will crumble. We'll fucking fall.
And with that, this is what we know.
It's a serious question.
I'm sorry.
Do you think you're the devil yourself?
I don't know. Why would you say that?
You never had a moment. You sat there and go, what the f have I done with my life? I'm in a 6x9 jail cell. How could I get myself into this situation?
No, I would just say how strange that this happens. Just, it's strange.
You likely know the broader points on Jeffree Epstein's life already. You know, humble origins, a teacher without credentials, an overnight millionaire, one of the most prolific sex traffickers who allegedly took his own life in prison, allegedly. But you've probably never heard that much of the crimes of Epstein stem from and date all the way back to a parent-teacher conference. Yeah. And here's the thing, like, we can introduce a lot of the red string gallery that makes up the list of Epstein's associates simply by telling some of his life story.
People would always call me and say, could you come look at my problems here? Could you come see my situation? Can you tell me what you think? And I started the J. Epstein Company, I think in 1982 at the Reason Thing. And I said I would only take you if you had $1 billion or more.
Now, it's a little messy and there are a few holes, but a brief recap can introduce some of the most notorious figures.
And they asked me to fill in what I would like to have written. And I wrote Jeffree Epstein, comma, just a good kid, which I thought was funny, nobody else did.
Epstein was born January 20th, 1953 to Paula and Seymour Epstein, a housemaker and groundskeeper for the New York City Parks Department.
My father worked in the park department. It would be beyond his imagination that people could lend out more money than they actually had in their pocket.
They call it a humble beginning. Growing up middle class in the western shore of Coney Island, Jeffree was considered a bright kid for two reasons. One, he was a hell of a pianist, apparently. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never heard him play piano, have you? But I guess Epstein could pound the hell out of those keys to the point that he was considered a bit of a savant. But the real reason he was considered a smart kid, he was really good at math. Why was he so good? Because he thought of it as a puzzle.
People receive pleasure when they get the right answer to a puzzle. What are the real mechanics? What's going on in someone's head when they have what Duchamp referred to as the aha moment?
Solving this puzzle unlocked something Epstein did a lot in his life, which is cut corners.
Do you think that there's anybody that understands money or understands the world's financial system as good as you?
There must be.
But it doesn't come to the top of the head.
No.
Now, Epstein was able to skip 2 grades and graduate high school at the age of 16 before heading to college, which he never graduated because I'm sure, as we all know, at the age of 21, Jeffree Epstein became a physics and mathematics teacher at the prestigious Dalton School, a private college prep school where annual tuition runs $64,500 today, meaning somehow Epstein became a teacher at a prestigious school for rich kids at the age of 21 with no credentials whatsoever. What the fuck is happening?
Where did he get the money from? How does he know all these people? The guy was a maths teacher. How did he end up in this situation?
Despite what some memes may have you believe, the situation's a bit more unresolved than you might think, but it's full of interesting, shall we say, coincidences.
There is no such thing as a coincidence.
Now remember, this isn't a doc solely about Jeffree Epstein or the graphic nature of his crimes. There are a million of those pieces out there. This is a doc about the shocking ties he has to damn near everything and his deeply disturbing associates, the inner circle. And one of the earliest known connections Epstein had to someone interesting was his connection to one Donald Barr. Yeah, probably not the Donald you were expecting, but don't worry, we'll get there. Actually, I'm gonna be so real with y'all. This can get very confusing. As I was going through all of the research for this, there are so many people involved. I started feeling like very Charlie, Always Sunny.
Oh, buddy, I gotta dig a little deeper. There's no Pepe. Sylvia, you gotta be kidding me. I got boxes full of Pepe.
So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bring in one of my own associates. We will call her Swoop Charlie. No, that's really dumb. Swarley, we'll call her Swarley.
This company is being bled like a stuck pig, Mac, and I got a paper trail to prove it. Check this out.
Listen, people. I have been in the research for this for months and months and months and months. And as I've been trying to untangle this mess of all of these rich and powerful people involved in this big web of lies, one thing that I know for certain is that the government is treating this like a joke. And if the government's gonna treat it like a joke, then I'm going to treat these people like a damn joke, because we know it's deadly serious what's going on here, but they seem to think it's a game. Like, what do you mean the Epstein files are on my desk? We're gonna release them. What do you mean we're gonna invite influencers over and give them a bunch of transparency binders? What do you mean Kash Patel is a podcaster who's now running the FBI? What do you mean he says, oh, there's no co-conspirators and we're gonna close the investigation? What do you mean the entire campaign was that we're gonna release the files and now it's just a Democrat hoax? Why is anybody talking about it? What do you mean Pam Bondi and the Dow? We must protect the Dow. If they're gonna treat it like such a joke, then we're gonna come with the same energy, okay? Let's start with the first one. We're gonna start off with this guy, Donald Barr. Donald Barr once worked for the U.S. Army's Office of Strategic Services and was also the headmaster at Dalton School. Or rather, he was the headmaster for 10 years before Epstein's hiring. Around February of 1974, he informed his faculty and the parents of his students that he would be resigning later that year, which he did. And he was described as controversial and very outspoken. Now, it's a bit unclear as to whether it was his decision to hire Jeffree Epstein in September before leaving Dalton, but what is very clear is that 1 year before resigning, Donald Barr, this guy, wrote possibly one of the most unhinged science fiction space opera novels of all time called Space Relations. Get this, the book is literally about child sex slavery.
Oh, God!
Elia.
What?
Except, who needs an island when this work of fiction happens in literal outer space? In an article for Vice published in 2019, Becky Ferreira wrote the following, quote, "The book is highly unsettling and depicts the rape of enslaved people, especially teenage girls, and other coercive acts for the dual purposes of entertainment and controlled procreation." Yay, wonderful. We're off to a great start. Quote, "The protagonist is John Craig, an Earthman in his 30s. After space pirates capture the passenger ship Craig is traveling on, he is sold into slavery on a planet called Kosar, a human colony run by 7 oligarchs who delight in performing cruelties on their captives. The leaders are all male except one, Lady Morgan Sidney." Does any of this sound familiar, by the way? "Whom the reader is immediately informed has, quote, high breasts and long thighs." I have a question, I'm sorry, just one. Where the fuck do these men get the whole grain audacity? Like, is it sold at some man-pilled grocery outlet where you can just fill your cart with the audacity and get a 2-for-1 coupon if you buy in bulk? Fuck! Let's continue. Quote, "Ultimately, Space Relations is a testament to how normalized it was and still is to sexualize minors and fetishize our word in science fiction. It also underscores how powerful people act with impunity. After all, Barr wrote a novel filled with underage R at the same time he was running an esteemed Manhattan school, and he didn't even feel the need to use a pseudonym."
Oh, hell no!
I hate it here. Oh, and just in case you were thinking about reading this book, here's a review from Goodreads that absolutely bodies Donald Barr's space adventure. At worst, this is a bold-faced, audacious indictment of the Barr family, and at best, it's an incredibly creepy work to have to come from a man who, at the time, oversaw the care of minors at an elite private school. And on top of all of that, the writing is atrocious, the plot is dull, and the characters are utterly forgettable. 0 stars. The question still remains, like, did Barr hire Epstein to work at Dalton School? Back in 2019, Thomas Valshow at the Daily Beast managed to call Peter Branch, the acting headmaster following Barr's resignation, who said that he didn't hire Epstein and, quote, he is relatively certain Barr, or possibly the head of the math department, hired Epstein because hiring decisions were typically made in the spring. He also noted that Barr liked to hire unconventional teachers to enhance the educational experience for students at Dalton.
Our faculty consisted of college professor grade teachers. I mean, most of them had PhDs.
You're not gonna get in trouble. I'm hungry.
But, and maybe this is a hot take, none of that actually matters. What matters more than who hired Epstein was that at the time, students had reported that Jeffree behaved inappropriately around them. Yeah, Jeff, quote, who was the teacher known for flirting with students in the hallway to such a degree that a former student said there was a real clarity of the inappropriateness of the behavior, that this isn't how adult male teachers conduct themselves. Now again, while we don't know if Barr hired Jeffree, it was Barr who created a culture where that was okay. And no, it's not lost on me that there's a literal virus called the Epstein-Barr virus that can cause over 60 terrible sicknesses. So, a way to stay on brand, boys. Now, as said in the American Tribune, quote, it was apparently Barr's disdain for credentials that made Dalton more liable to Epstein's infiltration than public schools. Susan Semmel, a teacher at Dalton from the 1960s to 1980s, said, Barr didn't care about credentials as long as you were interesting and knew your stuff. Epstein was interesting and, being remarkably intelligent, presumably knew his stuff. So he was hired and given an opening into the prestigious upper reaches of New York society.
Who do I think has the power in society? The rich.
Epstein got lucky with mid-1970s Dalton. Though prestigious, it was also different than public schools in that the hiring process was more unconventional. So whereas public schools were stuck with hiring processes that ensured teachers were at the very least qualified to fucking be there, Dalton didn't. Instead, thanks to a bizarre and open-minded hiring process, it ended up with a new teacher who pushed the limits on the school's strict dress code, wandering the halls in a fur coat, gold chains, and an open shirt that exposed his chest. Wait. Okay, so you're telling me that this man was rolling around the 1970s like the Mac? He went from being a fashion criminal to being an all-out criminal.
Jeffree Epstein went to jail just before 10 this morning. He pleaded guilty in open court. He agreed to serve a total of 18 months in the Palm Beach detention facility, 12 for felony solicitation of prostitutes, and an additional 6 for procuring persons under 18 for prostitution.
Now, I'm gonna cut to the chase with y'all right now. The person who may or may not have hired Jeffree Epstein would, in any other story, be but a footnote, if they're even mentioned at all. But it's that last name, Barr. That name pops up time and again in the life of Jeffree Epstein, and it's why after over 50 years, we're still debating who the hell hired him in the first place. Because as it turns out, Donald Barr is the father of none other than one Bill Barr. Bill fucking Barr. This guy, you know what I'm talking about, right? Well, if you don't know who he is, just strap your butt cheeks down to the seat because this is going to get very weird. Because as Daddy Donald Barr's time with Epstein would cease immediately following his sudden resignation, Epstein was about to spend a whole lot of time with his son, Bill.
Attorney General William Barr vows to go after anyone else involved in his alleged crimes.
This comes as Attorney General William Barr vows to go after anyone else involved in Epstein's alleged crimes.
So, William Barr, AKA Bill Barr, former United States Attorney General during the George H.W. Bush administration from 1991 to 1993.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been a privilege to serve you these past 3 years at the Department of Justice, and I'm honored that you have selected me to serve in the position of Attorney General. What makes it a particular honor is the opportunity to serve a president who is such a strong supporter of law enforcement.
He's also a man that Geraldo Rivera loved at one point.
And General Barr, you really are my favorite person in Washington, filled with admiration for the way you kept the walls from falling in.
And as you may remember him, Bill Barr was on the first Trump administration from 2019 to 2020.
And following a week-long televised farewell to George Bush, President Trump chose to nominate a Bush Attorney General to be his own man at the Justice Department.
And William Barr to take the helm as our new Attorney General is an outstanding man.
This would be the first of many connections to Donald J. Trump. Now, just because I had to, for completely unnecessary context that just gives me a bit of a tickle, here's bumbling Bill Barr playing the bagpipes while repping Bush. Enough! Okay. Enough. So Bill Barr actually knew Jeffree Epstein quite well. Allegedly, as the American Tribune helpfully summarizes, Barr's time as AG for Bush Sr. involved him covering up a little something known as the Iran-Contra affair.
The Iran-Contra affair. It was one of America's most notorious presidential scandals that almost cost Ronald Reagan his presidency. What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Now listen, I know what you're thinking, Swoop, what the hell is that and why should I care? Don't worry, we're not gonna go into it. It's just to point out a little color around good old Bill Barr, son of the man who wrote a sex trafficking book set in outer space.
With this one, we will have 16, 10 males and 6 females.
What?
So here's a quickie so we don't feel so thicky. Now I was gonna play this brilliant clip from American Dad, but the audio, they said no, no, no. So I will just read out the lyrics. In the 80s, there was the Cold War drama. We fought the commies inside Nicaragua. Our friends were the Contras, freedom was their mantra, so we sent them lots of money for guns and landmines. But Congress stopped the money flow just because they moved a teeny bit of blow. You see, North secretly sold missiles to a harmless country called Iran, who would always be a grateful ally. Then he gave the profits to the Contras. A genius! But their sales were uncovered by the press. Reagan and North began to stress because what they did was technically high treason. Ugh. It's a lot, I know. Just know that Bill Barr was the one who convinced the president to pardon the guys doing the bad things so that they would no longer be held accountable for doing the bad things.
In an interview, he said that many of the Iran-Contra defendants had been treated, quote, very unfairly. And he helped convince President Bush to pardon 6 of those defendants. Weinberger actually got his pardon before he even went to trial.
They just let him go. The pardoning was the end of an action surrounding, quote, defendants who had not even had their day in court, thus taking Bush further than other presidents have been willing to go with the pardon power. The not so subtle implication of the act was to make it impossible to pursue already developed plans to investigate Bush himself in greater detail.
Prosecutor Lawrence Walsh says the presidential pardons of 6 former Reagan administration officials, including Caspar Weinberger, won't end the Iran-Contra investigation. Walsh says Mr. Bush's own misconduct still is an issue.
If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, then it's probably a corrupt politician.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon. Full pardon.
But again, stay focused. What the hell does any of this have to do with Jeffree Epstein? Well, that's easy. Later in his life, Epstein also had some shit to do with Iran-Contra.
It's 1983, the Cold War is still raging, and a little-known 30-year-old financier named Jeffree Epstein has somehow managed to embed himself inside the largest arms deal in British history.
That's right. Epstein, allegedly, was into guns, drugs, and destabilization, baby.
That's gonna take this company into the stratosphere!
So we're gonna get back to the Dalton School timeline in a sec, but according to the American Tribune, after his 2009 release from prison, Epstein told people that he was making a fortune out of arms, drugs, and diamonds, a business that stemmed from Epstein's dealings in the arms world in the 1980s. Drugs and arms were integral to the CIA's attempts to arm the Contras, so it stands to reason that Epstein was involved. In fact, given that none other than Robert Maxwell, aka father of Ghislaine Maxwell, and definitely more on both of them later, given the fact that Robert Maxwell was implicated in Iran-Contra, it actually makes more sense if Epstein was involved in Iran-Contra than if he wasn't. Yet that's not a direct meeting between Epstein and Barr, is it? That wouldn't happen until 2009 when Bill Barr worked at a law firm called Kirkland and Ellis.
One of the law firms that represented Epstein long ago was a firm that I subsequently joined for a period of time.
Epstein was never represented by Barr directly, but the firm he worked at while he was there was indeed Dorino, the law firm that got Epstein his infamous little slap on the wrist, that little sweetheart deal, which he served only 13 months in a Palm Beach County jail with a fucking work release for the harm of underage girls.
That 2008 plea deal was negotiated in part by Trump's current labor secretary, Alexander Acosta.
Gee, it's almost like the system doesn't give a F about survivors. Like, they literally had this monster by the absolute balls and the chance to lock this animal in the cage, and instead he got a playpen. Sound familiar? And now he's on Fox News. Don't copyright me, please. I hate it here. To be clear, Bill Barr didn't represent him during that case, but Alexander Acosta did, the future US Secretary of Labor under Trump. Fun fact, so did Ken Starr, the man who created the Monica Lewinsky smear campaign.
I did not have relations with that woman.
Listen, friends, I am going absolutely insane trying to explain all of this, and I had to cut so much out of this because there are just so many players. I can't stand any of these people. Because again, if you think about it, not even a few years ago, all of this would have made anybody look like Charlie from It's Always Sunny.
Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look in the mail, well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia. So I say to myself, I gotta find this guy. I gotta go up to his office. I gotta put his mail in the guy's goddamn hands. Otherwise, he's never gonna get it. It's gonna keep coming back down here.
Yeah, I guess it turns out Swarley was onto something, because aside from some credible speculation we threw in there, all of what I just said is fact. It's fact. It is fact. I laugh because I can no longer cry at this point.
The Dow is over 50,000. I don't know why you're laughing.
And so I think that to the extent that the Epstein files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department, it should not be a part of anything going forward.
Okay, I'm not sure you totally get what people feel about that, but I want to move on.
Now, could some of what I've covered so far been a coincidence? Maybe. Does it seem at all like it was? No. And that's the thing about the friends of Epstein, as I'll call them to simplify this. Everybody was Jeffree Epstein's friend in one degree or another. And if they weren't, they were friends with one of his friends. The life of Epstein is filled with interesting coincidences that make him like a Forrest Gump if Forrest Gump were a prolific trafficker and not an avid runner.
And that's all I have to say about that.
I mean, literally, Epstein tried to outrun his past, but holy shit, did it catch up to him.
Would you raise your hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am. Have you ever been convicted of a crime? Yes.
So, back to Dalton School, Epstein, rich kids. Just to let you know that this guy has been a monster since basically the very beginning, here's an excerpt from his deposition from 2009. Question: what were the ages of the kids you were teaching at that high school? Answer: mostly old, mostly 17 and 18. Yeah, he considers 17 and 18 to be mostly old. Did you have any inappropriate contact with any of the girls that you were teaching at Dalton? Not that I remember. Not that I remember. This man, who students had already reported as being inappropriate, was walking around in fur coats with unfettered access to young girls, and he was collecting a paycheck for it. Now, all of this kicked off a weird sort of butterfly effect in this whole story, but Dalton was also where the real Jeffree Epstein began to emerge as well. Now, in filmmaking, they call this the inciting incident, you know, that pivotal moment in a story where the main character's life is disrupted and sent down a new, unfamiliar path. Epstein becoming a prolific ped and trafficker truly began when he was having a parent-teacher conference with one of his wealthier students' fathers. That father, who in every Epstein biography I could find is unknown, was reportedly really smitten with Epstein, and trust me, I dug around and tried to find who this father was. Whatever Epstein said at that parent-teacher conference led the father to call up a friend of his, begging him to give Epstein a job, which I guess was good timing considering that at the end of the school year, took a whole year, Dalton figured out Epstein was actually a bad and unqualified teacher. Shocker, I know. The man with no qualifications and a fur coat and gold chain actually being bad at his job.
Somebody asked me, what in fact do you do? And I realized that in order to make people think I was professional, I had to figure out what it was I did.
Scandal. But the question is, who was that father's friend, the one that got called and then gave Jeffree Epstein a job? Alan Ace Greenberg.
You tell people one thing and you're doing the other, and I think that's about the only time it's excusable to not be telling the truth.
Ace Greenberg was, at that time, the CEO for freaking Bear Stearns. You know, the Wall Street investment firm that is perhaps most famous today for being the beginning of the 2008 financial crisis. What in the bloody hell is happening?
Bear Stearns is definitely the most exposed to the mortgage situation.
The subprime mortgage crisis first hit Bear Stearns last summer when two of its hedge funds imploded.
Soaring gas prices, falling home prices, and rising unemployment.
What kind of recipe is that? Overall, that's a recipe for a recession.
Alan Greenberg, according to most sources, was famous for hiring unconventional talent. I mean, there's nobody more unconventional than the fraudulent teacher in a fur coat, Alan, but you do you. And this is kind of the weird thing about recapping how Epstein met the people he did and why most people don't even try to make sense of it and why I'm losing my mind. I mean, we know, for instance, that Epstein was the greatest blackmailer ever. How do we know that? Because US Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick said that he was.
And then he gets weirdly close to me. Ooh. And he says, get a massage, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume was on video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever. That's how he had money.
And that is a man who Epstein sold a house to for $10.
What's the matter? You too good for this $10, huh? You too good for it. It's a good $10.
And was spotted on Epstein's island together.
Did you in fact make the visit to Jeffree Epstein's private island?
I did have lunch with him as I was on a boat going across on a family vacation. My wife was with me, as were my 4 children and nannies.
And you realize that, you know, this visit took place after he'd been convicted.
But if Epstein was such a great blackmailer, is that how he got a job at Dalton School? Did he blackmail Donald Barr? Did he blackmail that parent? Did he blackmail Ace Greenberg? The reality is we'll likely never know. Every person that I just mentioned, except for Lutnick, is dead. But equally possible is that Epstein didn't blackmail any of those people. He was just really, really good at bullshit. For instance, despite the fact that Epstein did not know much of anything about finance, he managed to get himself a bit of insurance to make sure he didn't get fired. He started dating Lynn Greenberg, Ace Greenberg's 20-year-old daughter. You see where this is going and why I hate it all. It's believed that this relationship is why Epstein was able to thrive at Bear Stearns for about half a decade, to the point that on August 1st, 1980, Bear Stearns published a notice in the Wall Street Journal listing everybody who had made limited partnership at the company. On that list of silent investors was none other than Jeffree E. Epstein. Shout out to the public library, by the way. Literally had to get a new library card just to find this vintage publication. Long live physical media and the libraries. Y'all deserve a raise.
This was the start of a lifelong pattern for Epstein where he would basically escape with impunity because of his really astounding ability to charm people in positions of power.
Just 1 year later, Bear Stearns ran an internal investigation into whether Epstein had violated Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC regulations. According to journalist Vicky Ward, Epstein admitted later that he had violated the SEC. It was something called a Reg D violation, where Epstein loaned a friend $20,000 to buy stock. So, Epstein was fired.
Boy, it's getting so a man can't earn a dishonest living no more.
Now, what else do we have on the Epstein list? Let's see. Epstein was also in cahoots with a man named Steve Hoffenberg, who is so famous for being a fraudster that the second line of his Wikipedia page acknowledged he's famous for a Ponzi scheme. Real quick on this one. According to Hoffenberg, the exit from Bear Stearns is why Epstein became the wealthy international man of mystery, because he also started scamming people. Hoffenberg met Epstein at Bear Stearns and hired him after he was let go as part of a scheme to take over the company's Pan American Airways and Emory Air Freight Corp. Hoffenberg says he and Epstein and others at Towers promised to invest $3 million into the companies in order to persuade the Illinois Department of Insurance to approve their acquisition. But instead, they used $3 million of the company's bonds to buy Pan Am and Emory stocks. As a result, the insurance companies allegedly lost more than $1 million, and that was all the way back then. And due to Epstein's, shall we say, creative accounting, he was able to take all the insurance company's investments and cash and pocket them.
He reportedly admitted to swindling investors out of $460 million. Hoffenberg later claimed Epstein was the architect of the scam, though he was never charged in the fraud.
And it made him very rich. So with money he obtained through very scammy means, at the age of just 35, Epstein managed to found a company in 1988 called J. Epstein and Company, a consulting firm where he took everything he learned through Bear Stearns, Hoffenberg, and his own natural gift for grifting, and began providing money management services to the wealthy.
His firm reportedly only accepted clients worth $1 billion or more.
But in reality, we only know of one person J. Epstein and Company consulted for. A man who founded L Brands, the corporation in charge of The Limited, Victoria's Secret, and Bath and Body Works. That man was Mr. Leslie H. Wexner, aka Les Wexner, aka your worst nightmare. Like, if you ever wanted a headshot of what an evil billionaire looks like, I think this would be a good place to start, don't you? Now, Les Wexner is famous for three things. Number one, his vast wealth that he accumulated as a result of his business savvy. Number two, this is wild, Wexner is known for the unsolved assassination of his lawyer, Arthur Shapiro. It is such an unhinged story. Number three, what Wexner was known for, his association with Jeffree Epstein.
Wow, I'm in good company because these are really smart guys with a lot of money.
Their association was so close that when the FBI floated that email about the 10 co-conspirators list, Wexner was on it. Yeah, that same list that Kash Patel apparently said doesn't exist.
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday.
Now, Epstein met Wexner in 1986, and after taking a look at his strangely inflated resume, Wexner took the logical steps of hiring Epstein as his personal financial manager from 1987 through 2007, selling his New York property to Epstein, making him a trustee on the board of the Wexner Foundation, and also granting Epstein power of attorney for Wexner, allowing him to hire anybody he wanted, sign checks, buy and sell properties, borrow money, basically do whatever the hell he wanted, and it was legally binding on Wexner's behalf. That is how close these men were.
Billionaire Les Wexner telling the House Oversight Committee he was naive, foolish, and gullible to put any trust in Jeffree Epstein, and while I was conned, I have done nothing wrong and have nothing to hide, according to his planned remarks, and saying he never saw Epstein act inappropriately.
And a fun fact to tie this whole show together, so Wexner and Epstein helped relocate Southern Air Transport from Miami to Columbus. Now, what's Southern Air Transport, you ask? A fucking CIA front organization that allegedly smuggled drugs.
Its competitors still call it the CIA's favorite airline.
And Southern Air Transport was tied to none other than that blasted Iran-Contra affair. You get the idea. So that's just part of the unhinged backstory on how Epstein's empire developed from a whole pot of nothing. You know, the gift of grift, the gift of gab, wheeling and dealing to become as wealthy as humanly possible, all through sheer luck, conning, creative accounting, and a whole lot of right place, right time. And you know, he even met his bestie, Donald Trump, around this time. Oh, how nice. Everyone needs a friend, right? Just look at those dance moves. Now, Epstein would move his business operations to St. Thomas in the United States Virgin Islands, which is considered a bit of a tax haven. He bought himself Little St. James Island shortly before also acquiring Great St. James Island, got himself a house in Palm Beach, Florida, an apartment in Paris that looks like an actual fucking torture chamber.
This is my torture chamber.
A massive and incredibly creepy ranch known as Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. All of these locations, and I mean all of them, were home to some of Epstein's most disturbing crimes.
You can see all the units from the New Mexico Attorney General's office surrounding the mansion down there.
One document in the recently released Epstein files claims there were bodies buried on the property.
One could mistakenly brush Jeffree Epstein off as an incredibly talented grifter who managed to find his way into the hearts and wallets of the global elite through simply being really, really clever. I mean, I've read his emails, and the man was actually a bit of an illiterate dipshit. But maybe he was just really persuasive, ? However, it's Epstein's connection to these two in particular that take the story of Jeffree Epstein from that of a prolific scammer to one of the most prolific criminals in history, as well as an alleged asset of intelligence agencies in the United States, Russia, and Israel. These two people even happen to be related. I'm of course talking about British media tycoon Robert Maxwell and his daughter, aristocratic party girl, Ghislaine Maxwell.
I'd like you all to take a huge, deep breath. Inhale. Exhale.
Ethics do not exist. You're dealing with people who have got the morals of barnyard roosters.
Before Jeffree Epstein, there was a man named Jan Ludwig Hoch, born in the Czechoslovakian mountain village in Ukraine.
You're a very controversial man in this country.
I'm delighted.
Many, many people see you as a genius.
Genius?
There are others, however, less fond of you, who see you as a bit of a buffoon. Is that...
Now, he was born one of 7 children in circumstances so dire, it was said that he didn't even own a pair of shoes until he was 7 years old.
Very poor family indeed. My father was an unemployed farm laborer. We didn't have enough to eat.
This, unfortunately, was not the worst part. In 1943, during the war, he received a letter from his mom, and then nothing.
And then you didn't hear from them again?
Didn't hear from them again until after the war, when I met 2 sisters which I liberated from the concentration camp, who told me how they were taken away and driven straight to Auschwitz and gassed.
Now, even though tragedy surrounded him, Jan fled his hometown, joined the army, and changed his name. He went on to become a war hero and eventually something much darker.
And Maxwell was someone who wants power. He runs a very, very lucrative black market operation. He is the heart of taking goods from zone to zone and putting the cash in his pockets.
So in 1946, 2 things happened. First, met his future wife, Elizabeth Betty Maynard, and second, he changed his name to Robert Maxwell, and the pair would have 9 kids together.
Ghislaine, who's 5, and like the baby of any family, has daddy very much under control.
Hey, you! Anything happens to my daughter, I got a 45 and a shovel.
He was essentially a war hero turned press tycoon who came from nothing and built an empire. He was a member of parliament for the Labour Party. He was a business owner, having accumulated enough wealth to purchase the British Printing Corporation, Mirror Group newspapers, and Macmillan Inc., as well as many other publishing companies.
I believe that I could make Mirror newspapers, which are excellent papers, I could give them the edge and to make them more profitable.
Enough of this make you invincible. And I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about this.
He owned a helicopter. He was often in the press on account of being a big socialite. And he had a yacht named after his daughter, the Lady Ghislaine. I wish I was joking. Now, y'all, I'm gonna be real, okay? There is a whole other deep, dark political spy rabbit hole attached to Father Maxwell and Epstein, and we started to cover it, did a bunch of research, but it very quickly was like escalating into like, this is gonna be in at like 6 hours. We will save that for another time. Maybe we'll do a part 2. But to way oversimplify it, during the Arab-Israeli War of 1948, it's said that Maxwell indirectly assisted by using military contacts to smuggle aircraft parts into Israel to give them the upper hand in combat. This is Ghislaine Maxwell's father. Think about all the ties here. It is absolutely wild. Now, during that time, over 6,000 Israelis died during the war, and as many as 20,000 died on the Palestinian side. Now, a lot of this was allegedly thanks to Maxwell.
So that meant that a foreigner can be useful to us as person who would have an access to some information and who would willingly or unwillingly share it with us.
And listen, I know that this sounds crazy, but think about it. Once upon a time, so did the entire Jeffree Epstein story. It is very complex. Again, that's not the purpose of today's talk. So suffice it to say, allegedly, Ghislaine Maxwell's father was a secret government spy, perhaps for many different governments, who got his hands on bugged software that's essentially like malware that he sold to governments across the world. That software allowed you to spy on any government who used it.
The computer software is called Promise. It's designed to track millions of pieces of information on tens of thousands of people.
Right. Well, Maxwell was allegedly an intelligence spy. Maxwell is connected to Jeffree Epstein, and Epstein had all those Iran-Contra contacts. With those contacts, allegedly, were a few governments. And here we are, full circle in the 7th circle of hell, and it just keeps going.
This is ahead of a meeting with the Qatari investment fund, and he says, "Hi, Jeff, are you going to be in London on Thursday?" Epstein replies, "Unfortunately not. You should make clear I don't work for Mossad," smiley face. Ehud Barak says, "You or I?" question mark. And Epstein says, "That I don't," smiley face.
Now, regardless of where the truth in this lies, it's said that this is where Epstein began his blackmail operation to extort political and public figures in the United States.
There are a lot of open questions about whether Mr. Epstein kept extra records, videos, and otherwise for the purpose of blackmail, which then raises questions about whether government officials were blackmailed or responding to other powerful people who were blackmailed.
Remember, the greatest blackmailer ever. Now, Robert Maxwell himself would go on to die under mysterious circumstances in 1991.
Good evening. The publisher, Mr. Robert Maxwell, owner of the Daily Mirror, died today off the Canary Islands. His body has been recovered from the sea.
Robert Maxwell's death was a slow death, one that seemingly began in 1988 when he bought the U.S. publisher Macmillan for $2.6 billion.
Right.
Which itself was more than the company was estimated to be worth. At the time, Maxwell borrowed money from 44 banks to make the purchase. But unfortunately for Maxwell, the 1980s were a time of great financial uncertainty as the economic bubble burst, which led to Maxwell secretly having to take money, he secretly took money out of his employees' pension funds just to keep them afloat.
James O'Leary worked as a printer at the Daily Mirror for 17 years. He should be due a substantial sum from the pension fund in 2 years' time. Now he's in the dark over where he stands as banks owed money by Maxwell's businesses queue up for payment.
Now, things got so bad that Maxwell, in the final year of his life, was $1 billion in debt, insomniatic, and depressed. And on November 1st, 1991,
Mr. Maxwell, who was 68, had been on a holiday cruise on his motor yacht Lady Ghislaine. How he came to be in the sea is a mystery.
Now, as the story goes, he fell off his yacht into the cold waters of London. His body would be found 12 hours later.
I also want to take this opportunity to thank all the many hundreds of people who have sent messages of support at this very, very sad time.
Now, Robert Maxwell's death, much like Jeffree Epstein's, is catnip for conspiracy theorists, especially given all of his ties to all the government spy shit.
Mystery surrounds the events of this morning. The 430-ton vessel, said to have cost more than $25 million, was in calm seas. Conditions were perfect for cruising, and those who've been on board say because of its high sides, it would be almost impossible to accidentally fall overboard.
His death officially is that he had a heart attack that led to him falling off the boat and accidentally drowning, despite 3 pathologists being unable to agree whether this is what happened. It would be discovered shortly after his death that the pension funds Maxwell had pilfered totaled 763 million British pounds.
His main business, Maxwell Communications Corporation, owed the banks more than £1 billion.
And that is a lot of damn money.
Maxwell knew that the game was up from when he was on board his yacht, the Lady Jaclyn, where he died, that when he went back, he was due to fly back to London that morning, that he was going to effectively face 3 firing squads. He knew the fraud squad were after him, the Mirror pensioners were after him, and the banks were after him.
And overnight, the revelation ruined the reputation of the entire Maxwell family. It put the family in debt, with his son Kevin being held accountable for the then largest bankruptcy case in history. Newsweek even called him the crook of the century. The Maxwell name was ruined. You know, until Ghislaine was like, "Hey, Pop, hold my beer."
Reception rang through and said, "It's Ghislaine, Mr. Maxwell." And he says, "Put her on." The next thing I hear is, meow. And he went, meow, meow. And then he suddenly said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Nothing." And I thought, yeah, that's about right.
She is a monster. She's worse than Epstein. She was vicious, she was evil, and she was a woman. I ask each and every one of you here today who have the power to change the world to go to the Terramar Project site, sign the pledge, because to do that means that you are doing something. And I would just like to say thank you for your time, and I hope to see you on the site.
So, you probably know a lot about Ghislaine Maxwell already if you've even been the slightest bit versed in Epstein lore. She is, after all, the only Epstein associate serving time in prison, if you can believe it. Even if it barely is even a prison at all, being that she got the prison glow-up of the century the moment she took a softball interview with the DOJ and said very nice things about Trump.
As far as I'm concerned, President Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me, and I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming the president now, and I like him.
After saying that, something virtually unheard of happened. She suddenly got moved out of the prison and into a low-security prison camp with a puppy, access to a laptop, and more perks than your average Walmart thief.
Last July, Maxwell was moved from a medium-security prison in Florida to the minimum-security camp in Texas. This followed her meeting with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
You know, it's amazing. All a convicted abuser has to do to get the princess treatment is compliment the president. Nothing suspicious about that at all. Oh no.
I don't know. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly.
Now, considering that her life is so well documented, I'm not going to spend as much time on her backstory today. However, I want to start at the beginning of Ghislaine's timeline with Epstein. Here's how she describes meeting him.
I met Mr. Epstein in 1991. I'd never heard of him or met him before, and no one in my family had ever either. My father never knew him, and I'll explain why that is the case.
So it's incredibly likely that she lied about this because she lied about a lot during this interview. I mean, basically this woman has lied about literally everything. She quite literally is still maintaining that she has done nothing wrong.
She is a monster. She does not care. She has no remorse.
You know what? Let's go over some of those lies, shall we? Big lie number 1. She claimed she didn't know Epstein was harming underage individuals, even though she was convicted back in 2021 of harming minors and conspiracy for helping recruit and harm said minors. What the fuck do you mean you don't know?
Were there women that you knew were underage going to give him a massage?
No, I never knew that, and I can categorically state that had any child said to me that they were 14, 15, 16, maybe not 17, because 17 in England, I mean, if someone had said they were 17, I've read so much that did happen. I mean, I would never have permitted such a thing. I don't even know what I would have done.
Now, multiple survivors have testified over the years that Jaclyn was not only enabling, but was participating in the harm, and some have said she's even worse than Epstein.
You know, there were 4 of us that testified at her trial, but I have now met so many women who say it was because of Jaclyn Maxwell that I ended up being abused.
She told me that she knew of a man who was looking for a traveling masseuse, and if he liked me, then I would get educated and I would become a real massage therapist.
Why do you think she did it?
She did it because she loves the control over people. She was the mastermind.
Big lie number 2. The monster, that is Jaclyn Maxwell, also said she supposedly never saw any man doing something inappropriate with a woman of any age.
I never ever saw any man doing something inappropriate with a woman of any age.
Not only does this go against what survivors have been saying for literal years, it goes directly against what the court found when she was found guilty of facilitating the exploitation of these people.
A unanimous jury has found Jaclyn Maxwell guilty of one of the worst crimes imaginable.
Big lie number 3. She denied recruiting young women from Mar-a-Lago for Epstein. But in the words of Virginia Jeffree, someone whose clips I've played earlier and one of the most well-known survivors of the Epstein operation,
I was recruited at a very young age from Mar-a-Lago and entrapped in a world that I didn't understand, and I've been fighting that very world to this day.
Virginia, may she rest in peace, was far from the only young girl or woman that's alleged Jaclyn Maxwell recruited either. Just to name a few, there's Maria Farmer, who reported Epstein and Maxwell to the FBI in 1996.
What sort of threats has she made against you?
So originally it started with things like, I'm gonna burn your art, and then I'm gonna burn your career, and then I'm gonna burn you and the house you live in. And then it was like, well, you better be careful while you're jogging. And I told the FBI this, and I asked for witness protection, and I never received it.
There's Sarah Ransom, who alleged Jaclyn recruited her into the Ring network.
She sounded so amazing, and then poof, you're on this island, and that's it. There is no escape. It was made very clear to me that first trip that if I ever went to the authorities, if I told my parents, if I told my friends, if I ever left, Jeffree said to me, I will kill you.
Here's Teresa Helm.
Each of those women had very successfully manipulated me into thinking that it was a safe and healthy environment for me to go to.
Jess Michaels.
Because when his demeanor changed, something in me shut down, and I started to freeze and go numb at that point.
And there are at least 30 other known girls that were recruited either by Jaclyn or a girl Jaclyn recruited. Are they all lying, Jaclyn?
This is me.
This was me. This is me. When I met Jeffree Epstein.
There are about 1,000 of us.
Big lie number 4. She claimed that she never introduced former Prince Andrew to survivor Virginia Jeffree.
Could Andrew have come to the house to see me or see Epstein and say hi and she had been there? Yes. I can't say that that didn't happen. But what I can absolutely categorically say is that I never at any time set Andrew up with her or any other human being.
She also claimed at one point that this image of her, Andrew, and Virginia was fake, which is actually very interesting since before she said this, former Prince Andrew settled Jeffree's civil lawsuit for millions of dollars, even though he didn't admit liability.
Do you regret the whole friendship with Epstein?
Still not. The people that I met and the opportunities that I was given to learn, either by him or because of him, were actually very useful.
To which I say with all the disrespect I can muster, fuck you, Andrew, you lily-ass lizard, and fuck you too, Jaclyn. Okay, glad we got that settled. Okay, so I'm back, and somehow I'm even more pissed. So, big lie number 5.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mambo number 5. A little bit of Dawn knows all I need.
Ghislaine Maxwell claimed that no Epstein client lists exist. Exact words, quote, "There is no list."
Do you have a list of names in your head or names that come to mind of people that you know did get massages?
No, there's no list.
What do you mean there is no list, Ghislaine? What do you mean? Ghislaine, what do you mean?
I struggle to recall actual people that I met, and there's no list. There was never a list. There's no list. There's never been a list.
I mean, editors at this point just like cover the damn screen up with Epstein flight logs and pages from his black book until the whole damn video breaks like an old Windows computer. So that, of course, was very interesting because at the time, Attorney General Pam Bondi said the list was on her desk.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffree Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
But don't worry, she later flip-flopped and said there was no such list.
Our memo on Epstein clearly points out that there was no client list.
Now, yeah, it's probably true that there's likely not one physical list that says like, hey, look at me, this is the list of people Epstein trafficked women and girls to, but it's such a disingenuous bullshit argument.
If you listen to my entire clip on that, I said I had not reviewed it yet, that it was sitting on my desk.
Yeah, she got fired, couldn't even look the survivors in the eyes. So here's the really important thing about Ghislaine Maxwell that I don't think enough people are truly talking about. For many years, this narrative was that Epstein, built his database of clients based on Ghislaine's connections as a wealthy socialite, the daughter of a once wealthy, later disgraced newspaper tycoon with deep ties to every deplorable global government thing imaginable. To a certain degree, Epstein did meet a lot of people through his ex-girlfriend. I mean, yeah, Ghislaine was such a social butterfly in those circles that she was even at Chelsea Clinton's wedding.
She came as the +1, the guest of someone who was invited.
I mean, literally, there's Bill having a little swim with her. Oh, look, the pool even has a movie screen. How nice for them. And one of Epstein's most notorious co-conspirators is somebody Ghislaine introduced him to, Jean-Luc Brunel.
The head of Karen Models, one of the largest and most prestigious agencies in the country. His name is Jean-Luc Brunel,
a French model scout who was a prominent figure due to his international modeling agency, Karen Models, as well as MC2 Model Management, a company financed by Epstein. Now, Brunel, according to many of Epstein's survivors' testimony, was a major recruiter for Epstein's operation in countries across the world, with some of the victims, again, being underage.
You are there for the purpose of somebody wanting to take you home to bed. He is acting as a matchmaker. He's got the agency, he's got the girls. His friends say, oh, Jean-Luc, I'd like to meet some girls, or we're having a party tonight. Can you bring some girls? And what happens if you say no? You don't work.
It's reported Brunel visited Epstein 67 times in jail after his 2006 arrest and sent 6,000 emails back and forth. Wild. Now, long story short, Brunel was later arrested and French authorities opened a criminal case into him on allegations of CSA, SH, and this ring tied to Epstein. And guess what? He too was found dead in prison in 2022 in a death often described as similar to Epstein's own under very suspicious circumstances.
Tonight, Jean-Luc Brunel is dead, found in his Paris prison cell hanged with his bed sheets, according to the Paris prosecutor's office.
Boo-hoo, bitch. I do not feel bad. Now, officially, it was self-inflicted. Unofficially, it's odd, don't you think?
To be honest, it was about 6:30 in the morning when I looked at the news and I saw it and I felt nothing but slight joy.
Pow. Now, the truth is there are a lot of people who Ghislaine was able to meet because of Epstein as well. Their relationship wasn't, that of one leeching off the other. Their relationship was kind of symbiotic. And in many ways, Ghislaine and Epstein's relationship kind of seemed codependent, even after the two tried to publicly distance themselves from each other following Epstein's first arrest.
There's something deeply f***ed up with you. At least something.
Now, because of Epstein, Ghislaine was able to meet people like Les Wexner, the Victoria's Secret guy.
Period.
Now, fun fact, Les Wexner was recently deposed about Epstein by the House Oversight Committee, where after a few very long-winded answers, his own attorney leaned over and said, "I will fucking kill you if you answer another question with more than 5 words."
Period.
Okay, that's wonderful. Back to Ghislaine. She also met private equity investor Leon Black. There was hedge fund guy Glenn Dubin and his wife Eva Anderson Dubin. She met scientists like Stephen Hawking. There was Bill Gates and Marvin Minsky, millionaire business people like Nicole Junkerman. She even met world leaders like Ehud Barak. These people and more are what we could consider the real Epstein list. These are the powerful associates of Jeffree Epstein, but we're gonna dig much more deeper into the inner circle today.
That includes the current president, a former president, cabinet secretaries, a former prime minister, billionaires, and the list goes on and on and on.
Here's a really famous photo you may have seen from the Epstein files. Yep, that's Michael Jackson and Jeffree Epstein. When this photo was revealed to the public, it felt like evidence that all of existence truly was a simulation. We are in the Matrix and the Matrix has glitched.
You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
There was even a photo of Michael Jackson, Bill Clinton, and Diana Ross with a couple redacted young people, which looked sinister until you realize that it was taken at a fundraising event, and the redacted faces are Diana Ross's son and Michael Jackson's children. But this photo, this is a pretty crazy photo. There's no other way to put it. I mean, what the hell, Mike?
That is so stupid. That's the most ridiculous, horrifying story I've ever heard.
And when it came out, social media immediately questioned, is Michael Jackson on the client list? Well, that answer is pretty definitively no. Or at least there's little to no evidence that this is the case, besides one piece of testimony from Epstein accuser Johanna Schuberg, who in 2016 was asked whether she met any famous people around Epstein. She said, "I met Michael Jackson at Jeffree's house in Palm Beach." Now, Johanna specified that nothing happened with her and Jackson. She saw Jackson do nothing. There are no allegations of wrongdoing. And as far as we know, this is one of the only times Epstein and Jackson ever interacted. According to one of Michael Jackson's bodyguards at the time, the meeting was a coincidence because Jackson was house hunting in Palm Beach and that nobody involved were even aware that they had met Epstein, as the meeting was in 2003 and Epstein hadn't yet been convicted.
The controversial singer was spotted at the Palm Beach International Film Festival. Reportedly, he's house hunting there, and reviews from residents are mixed.
I'm not a great Michael Jackson fan. Let's let it go with that. He's welcome just like anybody else.
Now, a lot of people will say there are a number of reasons one could be suspicious about Michael Jackson, but this doesn't appear to be one of them. He wasn't on the flight logs, he was never known to visit Little St. James, and no, I can already see some of you writing in the comments, I'm not sweeping for anyone here. I'm simply saying when it comes to deciphering between friend or foe, who was an associate of Epstein's, aka a friend, and who was not, facts are important. And if someone is in the files, what is most important is why they're in it.
Mr. Epstein, how long have you been sexually attracted to underage minor females? Are you kidding?
The truth behind a lot of these viral Epstein distractions, if you will, you see a name associated with something like, say, Chuck E. Cheese, and you've suddenly given fuel to some of the most conspiratorial people on the internet.
Chuck E. Cheese's. It's cool, for real.
Chuck E. Cheese has been the target of some pretty insane conspiracy theories over the years, some stupid, some Shane Dawson shaped.
It's real.
And some a bit more sinister sounding. Now, the reason for this is probably a lot dumber than you think. People really like Five Nights at Freddy's, a horror game that basically asks the question, what if Chuck E. Cheese but scary?
Where?
Now, unless you've managed to stay off the whole internet over the last 10 years, I'm sure you're familiar with Pizzagate, the conspiracy theory that claims political elites were trafficking kids secretly and speaking in coded language, referring to them as cheese pizza. It became one of the foundations to QAnon conspiracy theory, and it's interesting to think on a base level that Pizzagate was right, but I mean, for one, look at how these morons actually communicated with each other. Epstein, free and home. Redacted, how shall we celebrate? Epstein, with grace and modesty. Those are the names of 2 strippers. Redacted, how is freedom feeling? Epstein, she feels fresh, firm, and creamy.
Brother, what's that, brother?
Losers. Like, they didn't need pizza code, and yet Pizzagate, even 10 years on, which has been debunked many times over, persists as one of the most viral conspiracy theories of the social media age, even though there's a very real conspiracy of Epstein happening right in front of us.
I wanted to let you know the crew really appreciated the pizza today. This is from a guy named Roy Hodges to Jeffree Epstein. The crew really appreciated the pizza today. Thank you for letting us do that.
So when David McKillop's, now former CEO for Chuck E. Cheese, popped up in the Epstein files, people lost their pepperoni minds. The owner of Chuck E. Cheese was in the Epstein files, a place where many of you took your children for birthdays and fun times, is implicated in one of the biggest scandals ever. Let's break this down. On February 3rd, 2026, David McKillop announced, quote, "After 6 amazing years, I am stepping down as president and CEO of the most spectacular family entertainment and restaurant company, CEC Entertainment. I have enjoyed every day of my tenure here and feel that it is a great time for a transition, blah, 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 words, words, words. I'm not yet ready to share my next step, but I'm prepared to get comfortable with the uncomfortable again in an all-new global challenge." So, February 3rd, what else happened around that time? An Epstein files drop of around 3.5 million files on January 30th. And what happened when you went to the Epstein files library that day and typed in, say, David McKillop? David McKillop was in the files because he was a speaker at a conference for the Future Investment Initiative, a nonprofit organization run by the Public Investment Fund, Saudi Arabia's main sovereign wealth fund. Now, this was not a conference Epstein spoke at, and it's not really clear whether he even attended. This was literally just a list that was sent to Epstein that happened to have David's name on it. No! It's incredibly likely neither man knew each other, meaning he likely is not a friend of Epstein's, more so a foe, i.e. not involved. David McKillop claimed at the time that he was merely resigning to work at another company, and considering that he now appears to be the CEO for Topgolf, I have no reason not to believe him. Yet that didn't stop the social media circus from doing what it does, to the point that Chuck E. Cheese had to release a damn statement. Yes, the cheese is involved. And none other than Jimmy Kimmel made a joke about it.
One of the names that was not redacted was kind of interesting. It was David McKillop, who is, or I should say was, the CEO of Chuck E. Cheese. He resigned after his name appeared in the files once, and in a seemingly innocuous way. I mean, Trump's mentioned a million times he's still president of this guy is no longer CEO. But if you think about it, from a business standpoint, if you think about it, name a company that would be less excited about their CEO being mentioned in the pedo. I mean, would it be A, Home Depot, B, Wells Fargo, C, Sam's Club, or D, Chuck E. Cheese? The answer...
Another interesting name in the files, Mira Nair, esteemed indie film director, most well known for her 1991 film Mississippi Masala and her 2016 Disney film Queen of Katwe. Someone you see often mentioned in lists of the greatest women filmmakers alive.
She became the first woman to win the highest honor at the Venice Film Festival.
Nice to be here, Charlie.
She's also the mother of New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani.
I am his mother.
Now, obviously, her name popping up in the files raised eyebrows, but she was mentioned in just one email from 2009 about an after party for a screening of her film that happened to be held at Ghislaine Maxwell's townhouse. Now, does it suck that she presumably met Ghislaine Maxwell? Maybe, if she knew about Jeffree's past conviction, but Maxwell wasn't known at this time for her crimes. She was known as a socialite. A bazillion amount of people probably met her, celebrities and none alike. It's important to separate out who is in the files for innocuous reasons so that we can focus on who is in it for sinister reasons. Now, on the other side, here's someone who was a friend to Epstein, Bill Gates.
I have to acknowledge
the elephant in the room at this moment. Your ex-husband, Bill, is named in the newest tranche of Epstein files.
Microsoft co-founder and billionaire Bill Gates was in the files with a very interesting email drafted by Epstein that insinuated that Billy was doing some diabolical deeds. Now, we won't get into it, but suffice it to say that Bill allegedly contracted an STI for his deeds and may have asked Epstein how to sneakily give medication to his then wife Melinda Gates without her knowledge or consent.
So whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those things, not me.
The email was drafted but never sent, and while Bill denies it, he did come out and confess to having not one, but 2 affairs with Eastern European women while married, and Epstein may have blackmailed him. A boo-hoo, bitch.
You know, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
Now here's another hideous creature. The man who once made the Statue of Liberty disappear, Mr. David Copperfield. I bet he wishes he could make his name disappear from the Epstein files. I mean, we're talking numerous messages, trips to the island, photos of them in bathrobes.
The world's most famous magician forced in a courtroom to pull back the curtain on one of his most famous tricks.
And although Copperfield denied all of it and called Epstein a mere acquaintance, it did lead to his residency in Vegas at the MGM Grand being canceled. I guess one might say it's curtains for Copperfield, leaving a stain at the end of his show's 25-year run.
A lot of people have dreams and they don't do anything about them. Sometimes I'm afraid that's going to happen to me.
When it finally did come out, it blew up. We're going to get him, aren't we? And like, it was the first time that like there was some positive, right? That like people were listening, people were upset, people wanted to know how this happened. He's going to get in trouble.
Remember how I said the world of Epstein extends beyond American political parties and we have to be able to look past the aisle to hold monsters accountable? I'm gonna say this again. I do not care what party lines these people belong to. If someone participated in or enabled the harm of these survivors, they should be held accountable, period. So with that, it is interesting how tied to the world of both far-right politics Jeffree Epstein was, you know, given he was a man who was also very tied to Democrats as well. Take, for example, former President Bill Clinton, a man who had known Epstein and Maxwell since the 90s, with Epstein even attending Washington events while Clinton was president.
Mr. President, do you recognize yourself in this photo?
I do.
And it appears that the man on the right of the photo is Jeffree Epstein, is that correct?
I think so.
Now, Clinton was a man who flew on Epstein's Lolita Express at least 26 times in 2 years, including an infamous Africa trip alongside, Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker, and had been to Epstein's Manhattan home at least once.
I did take those plane trips with him. And you have a right to ask those questions.
If there was one driver in the world of Epstein, it was, to put it simply, power. Didn't matter which country or party it came from, Epstein was driven to power and drawn to maintaining connections to the global elite. Now, there is actually an insane amount of connections between Epstein and multi-billionaire Trump and his administration, and the connections go really far beyond whether Donald Trump was one of Epstein's clients, which there's a very real chance that he was, right? We all understand this. There's literally FBI interviews of a girl saying so, along with the fact that he used FBI resources to redact his name, and he keeps shutting down the release of the files, saying there's nothing more to the story.
Are you still talking about Jeffree Epstein?
When even his own wife contradicted him recently by saying, actually, yes, there is more to this story.
Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone.
Sidebar, you want to know something weird? So that guy right there, the guy on the right who's cuddled up next to the woman who's cuddled up next to Epstein, yeah, that's Brett Ratner there. You know, the same Brett Ratner that directed the Melania documentary that came out this year. This is the same Brett Ratner who was photographed with modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel, as we know, an associate of Epstein's who was awaiting trial for harming and trafficking minors when he too mysteriously died. And yes, the same Brett Ratner who was accused of SA by actress Olivia Munn. Nothing weird about that. Nothing at all. So back to Epstein's deep ties to people in the current administration. Like it or not, this is the reality. Let's go down a list, since the DOJ literally refuses to, which is definitely against the law, but it doesn't seem like that matters to them. Now, remember Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick? Epstein and Lutnick were neighbors in an apartment. Epstein sold Lutnick through a shell company. What about the Secretary of Navy John Fallon? Literally in the last name, a man who was a passenger on Epstein's private jet. There's also US Ambassador to Turkey Tom Barak. No, not that one. Tom Barak was a close friend to Epstein that following Epstein's arrest texted him, thinking about you. Oh, that's so sweet. There's also Deputy Secretary of Defense Stephen Feinberg with financial ties across countless businesses to Epstein. How about Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Sure, let's toss him in there. Why not?
We need to stop trusting the experts.
Yeah, super glad this guy is in charge of our health or whatever. Legend has it Epstein and RFK Jr. partied together. And by legend, I mean there's literal evidence of it. And also they looked for like dinosaur bones together. Yeah, I don't know either. The true Epstein list goes on and on, friends. Like, there, of course, is former Doge, whatever the f he was, Elon Musk, a man who might be the literal spawn of Satan, who openly admitted to buying the presidential election, who I'd like to dropkick into outer space with the rest of these troglodytes. They can go hang out at Space Relations book with that Dalton guy.
Keep the change. Roadhouse.
Now, Elon's connections are a bit funnier. He really wanted to go to the parties and hang out on the island, and Epstein did not appear to want him there at all. In November of 2012, good old Elon asks, and I quote, "What day/night will be the wildest party on your island?" Then, without a documented reply much later, aka Epstein ghosted him, maybe allegedly on Christmas Day, mind you, which is also the same day that Ghislaine was born. She was born on Christmas. Like, what the hell is going on? Anyways, December 25th, 2012, Elon again asks, "I really want to hit the party scene in St. Bart's or elsewhere and let loose. The invitation is much appreciated, but a peaceful island experience is the opposite of what I'm looking for." And Epstein responds, "Understood. We'll see you on St. Bart. The ratio on my island might make Talila uncomfortable." And just to be sure, they're on the same page, Elon is clear to Epstein in his response as a gross man to a gross man, a ratio is not a problem for Tallulah. Glad we cleared that up. The nicest thing that I could say about Elon Musk is that he's, actually I'm struggling to say something nice about him, but I will say that he is such a complete loser that not even the collector of dumbass losers himself, Jeffree Epstein, wanted him around. So way to go for sucking that much, Elon.
Maybe you should just go back to your little cars, huh?
Now, unfortunately, the same likely can't be said for Elon's brother, Kimball. The emails there paint a much more sinister picture that hint that Kimball Musk may have allegedly been an Epstein client. Oh, there's also Epstein's connection to Peter Thiel, tech billionaire, and possibly the most evil man on the planet.
I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right?
Now, in case you need a refresher on who Peter Thiel is, he's a billionaire venture capitalist and entrepreneur who once co-founded PayPal, financed now Vice President J.D. Vance's Senate run. He also wrote a book called The Diversity Myth.
The same, I think, is true of diversity. This is another one of these incredibly misleading, euphemistic terms.
Now, Peter once stated that he no longer believes that freedom and democracy are compatible, which is the very last thing you want to hear someone with a lot of money and power say. He's also been described as Nazi curious and is one of the most prominent people who got Donald Trump elected the first time around.
Are you planning to support the president this time?
You hold a gun to my head. I'll vote for Trump. I'd rather have him vote than Biden.
And he's also the founder of a company, Palantir, a data mining company that sells software managing and analyzing data to further secure it, one that uses AI to do so and is currently teamed up with the US government to assist ICE in ripping immigrant families apart.
Now, the app populates a map with potential targets, pulls up a profile on each individual person, and provides a, quote, confidence score on each person's address.
Yeah, that's not a terrifying violation of privacy at all. So when we talk about the fact that Epstein once financed an AI surveillance company, co-run by Junkerman, a woman who once dated Epstein, who was good friends with billionaire Peter Thiel that owns an AI surveillance company, who financed the vice president, well, suddenly things seem a lot more sus.
You know, my speculative thesis is that if the Antichrist were to come to power, it would be by talking about Armageddon all the time.
Quick question. Do y'all know who Steve Bannon is?
They can call me an anti-Semite, they can call me racist, they can call me native, they can call me anything you want.
Former film producer, former head of right-wing news outlet Breitbart, and most importantly, former chief strategist for Donald Trump during his first term. Steve Bannon is the man who came up with the Trump strategy of, as they call it, quote, flooding the zone with shit, which is where the administration does, you know, just a lot of wild, bizarre, or trolling, or terrible things, like all at the same time. It's literally everything everywhere all at once, just smacking you all upside the face. They do this knowing that it will exhaust the public and the media, and they won't be able to, you know, pay attention to everything going on.
Stephen Bannon of conservative firebrand news site Breitbart, now campaign CEO.
You can't overemphasize how quickly Bannon went from being a completely anonymous figure to being central, not just in the White House, but to the American political system.
Think back just a little bit ago in March, the minute-to-minute coverage of the war was getting so bad, we actually missed that Congress got sworn testimony from Epstein's accountant, Richard Kahn.
It pains me to think, and I deeply regret, that I may have unknowingly assisted Epstein in any way.
That's the kind of flood the zone shit the administration was up to every day in the first term, and it was designed by Steve Bannon. And while all this was happening, Steve Bannon became really close friends with Epstein, like really close. Bro Bannon literally lived at Epstein's Paris apartment. Let me say that again. He lived with Epstein, lived with him. That's how close. They were bosom buddies. And if you've read as many of Epstein's emails as I have, number one, I am so sorry you went through that. And number two, you might know that Epstein was cold with almost everybody he knew except Bannon, a man he genuinely seemed to like and respect. Imagine the worst fucking person on the planet respecting you. Now, if you listen to Steve Bannon today, he'll tell you that this wasn't a friendship so much as him doing a journalism, claiming that his relationship with Epstein was strictly professional. Bannon had over 15 hours of footage of interviews with Epstein that he claimed were to make a portrait of the monster, but the emails between the two dispute that deeply. Bannon was, in fact, trying to rehabilitate Epstein's image.
The future is for the way women think. The way women think. That's correct. Is that not a sop because of all the depravity you've done against young women, and your new sop is that their women's thinking is the future?
No, I've always believed that women would in fact be able to take over. I'm a firm believer and supporter of Time's Up.
So take this and add it on top of a plethora of evidence pointing to Bannon just straight up coaching Epstein how to appear more friendly and sympathetic in media appearances, and you get a clearer picture of who Bannon is.
I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors.
Hello, Melania Trump. My name is Juliet Bryant. I'm an Epstein survivor. You want girls to testify under oath. Well, here I am testifying that everything I've said is true. Unfortunately, a lot of the girls who testified died. Maybe it's about time that you and your husband testified too.
So, question, were the people in the Trump administration the official named co-conspirators of Jeffree Epstein? No. There's a list of 10 names from a 2019 FBI email of possible Epstein co-conspirators, and on that email lists what prosecutors have called the true co-conspirators of Jeffree Epstein. These names were previously mentioned names like Ghislaine Maxwell and Jean-Luc Brunel, but also Les Wexner. We established earlier that most of Epstein's wealth and connections originated from Wexner, but what we didn't mention was that Epstein used Wexner's Victoria's Secret connections to allegedly lure survivors into his web. This is truly effed up. According to NBC reporting, Epstein would pose as a Victoria's Secret talent recruiter and lure women to his hotel room and
what was your understanding of what
Mr. if you want.
He was a bachelor, so he drew a pair of boobs.
In Wexter's denial, he claims to have cut Epstein off in 2007 due to Epstein stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from him, leading up to the final straw, despite the fact that Epstein files show the two communicated after that. Like we always say, there's no such thing as an ethical billionaire.
Well, I didn't know he was stealing till after we discovered that he was a crook. Subsequently, I found out that it was at least $100 million.
I'm gonna say this before we continue. I know that the focus again today is on the rich and powerful names attached to Epstein, but I do want to acknowledge one of my own personal frustrations that I feel often goes overlooked in this whole story. And that is literally everyone else who worked for Jeffree fucking Epstein. Talking about the pilots, the butlers, the private chefs, the maintenance crew, the housekeepers, the nannies, the doctors, the nurses, the assistants, the travel agents, my gosh, the photographer, who's taking all these pictures? And I think that maybe there are people out there who just looked the other way, and I think that they should all be put in front of the courts and made to testify and suffer the consequences. I am so effing tired of grown-ass adults acting oblivious. Just speaking from experience, there are many grown adults who saw that a grown-ass man was preying on me when I was a child and they did nothing. People in the shadows always say, it's none of my business. Yes, it fucking is. If you're taking a paycheck to clean up the massage rooms or cook the food for the kids or fly the planes or steer the boats with them on it, it's literally your business, and you have failed 1,000 survivors, and I hope their faces haunt you every night you try to sleep until you do the right thing and speak out. I just had to get that off my chest. Let's continue. Beyond Wexner, there are 8 important names of potential co-conspirators that you need to know. Number 1, Leslie Groff, Epstein's assistant of 18 years. She appears over 130,000 times in the Epstein files because she managed all of Epstein's scheduling, travel, meetings, and communications with powerful contacts. In 2007, when Epstein was first convicted, she received federal immunity from Epstein's crimes as part of the sweetheart deal. Countless survivors have alleged she scheduled massage appointments, arranged travel for survivors, and coordinated schedules between Epstein and the visitors he was allegedly taking these women and girls to.
Victims also filed lawsuits against her, accusing her of facilitating Epstein's crimes, but those charges were dropped.
Now, Groff denies knowing of any wrongdoing, and the same can be said for the other women who received immunity that are also considered potential co-conspirators.
The FBI is looking for important witnesses. One of them could be the woman by the name of Nadia Marchenko. She is a former pilot for Jeffree Epstein.
But before she was a pilot, witnesses say she was a teenage sex slave for Epstein.
But that leads us to the final 2 names truly worth knowing in Epstein's inner circle, and maybe the most sinister of them all. Darren Indike, Epstein's personal lawyer, and Richard Kahn, Epstein's accountant, who I mentioned earlier had just been deposed when no one was looking.
I don't know exactly what he did. And I say this again because I want everybody to be clear about this. I didn't see it. I didn't see anything and nobody complained to me about anything.
These 2 men also run almost all of Epstein's shell corporations and are executors of his estate in death. There's a really disturbing document that until recently was in the Epstein library, yet appears to have been mysteriously deleted by the said transparent library.
Access denied, access denied, access denied, access denied, access denied.
And it was titled, quote, Government of the United States Virgin Islands v. Darren K. Indike, Richard D. Kahn, Estate of Jeffree E. Epstein, and associated entities. Now, thankfully, good friend of the channel, Jed Bookout, actually co-wrote an article about this very document with V. Spear for Under the Desk News recently, who we love so much. Their important work makes that article one of the last locations I could find where you can read the lawsuit, which is from after Epstein's death and has allegations regarding not only Epstein's ring, his operation, but the massive financial system that he used to keep it afloat across the globe.
I'm not saying that I never saw minors. I'm saying, let me rephrase that.
I never saw minors in Epstein's presence.
Who are Indyke and Khan exactly? Darren Indyke, he's a lawyer who knew Epstein for over 30 years. He's a former member of Trump's legal team. He currently works for the Palatore Law Group, whose founder, Tim Palatore, by the way, represented Secretary of War Pete Hegseth during his SA allegations that emerged prior to his appointment to the Department of Defense. So yeah, they're literally appointing alleged SA offenders to positions of office. And no, I'm not surprised. And yes, I hate it here.
Is it true that you made Mr. Epstein a godfather of your children?
Yes, it was an honorary appellation.
As for Richard Kahn, he's a bit more mysterious. Like, there's like literally only like one damn photo of this dude, but he's an accountant that also worked for Epstein for decades. So as Under the Desk News writes, quote, neither Indyke nor Khan claimed to be aware of Epstein's trafficking operation and denied any complicity or participation in said acts. However, that's not what the Wall Street Journal found, which included reviews of public and non-public court documents, settlement agreements, banking, tax and property records, letters, emails, interviews with women who had dealings with Indyke and Khan, and interviews with the men themselves. This is a pair of men who for far too long were kept out of the spotlight, which is interesting given their heavy connections to every single part of the Epstein story from the 90s onward. Quote, defendants Khan and Indyke organized, controlled, and directed almost every aspect of the Epstein enterprise. They were officers in virtually every corporate entity that Epstein created to fund and conceal his activities. Indyke and Khan were, in short, the indispensable captains of Epstein's criminal enterprise roles for which they were richly rewarded. Not a single one has been held accountable, and the lawsuit revealing this information was seemingly scrubbed from the Epstein library, presumably by the hands of this administration, being that they're the ones in charge of it. And I gotta ask, why might that be? On March 11th, 2026, it went underreported, probably because we're at war with Iran, that Khan was dragged into a House Oversight Committee hearing for a closed-door deposition. And you want to know what Richard Khan told the committee, despite the overwhelming amount of testimony and evidence that he knew of Epstein's crimes?
While Epstein was alive, I never observed any sexual abuse or trafficking of women and never received a complaint either by one of Epstein's victims or anyone else of such abuse or trafficking.
Need I remind you, Khan is an executor of Epstein's estate, still along with Indyke, both of whom are also beneficiaries of Epstein's.
Yes, I am a beneficiary of the 1953 trust.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it?
That's basically where we are in figuring out who Epstein's closest associates were. We may not directly know who the Epstein clients are yet, but we know who the most important people in his life were, who helped finance and facilitate his crimes. Ghislaine Maxwell, Robert Maxwell, Les Wexner, Jean-Luc Brunel, Leslie Groff, Darren Indyke, Richard Kahn, Nicole Junkerman, Leon Black, Glenn Dubbin, Ehud Barak, Steve Bannon, and yes, also likely including President Donald Trump himself, a man that in spite of immeasurable redactions is still mentioned more times in the Epstein files than Jesus Christ is mentioned in the Bible.
You know about sexual predators and things like that. I mean,
you are one.
All right.
By the prison.
I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. She's got marlon's legs. We don't know whether or not she's got this part yet, but time will tell. The whole Epstein thing is a Democrat hoax. You are the worst reporter. I don't think I've ever seen you smile. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter. It's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax. Are you still talking about Jeffree Epstein?
We are not mad enough. Release the unredacted files, stop fucking around, and give these survivors the justice they deserve. People like Virginia Roberts Jeffree, Maria Farmer, Annie Farmer, Sarah Ransom, Johanna Schoberg, Caroline Andriano, Teresa Helm, Courtney Wild, Jess Michaels, Marina Lasadera, Jenna Lisa Jones, Haley Robson, Anuska Jorio, Shantae Davies, Michelle Licata, and countless other women named or otherwise who suffered at the hands of Epstein, Maxwell, and their co-conspirators. One day there will be a true reckoning, and that day can't come soon enough. Keep fighting. You are not alone, and this is what we know.
History is washing. We matter now, and we are speaking, and we are not going to stop speaking.
We keep using our voice, and that to me is enough.
It's time that we put the political agendas and party affiliations to the side.
He's going to keep denying that it ever happened, but he knows the truth. And I know the truth.
It's not a Republican issue or a Democratic issue. It is also not a hoax.
No billionaires, no politicians, not world leaders is above the law.
Justice really is, at this point, is just exposing.
There is going to be a totally new generation of women that are not to be played with.